Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day today. Today, we're going to be talking about a Bear Creek Arsenal complete rifle. This is actually going to be the first complete rifle of theirs that I've ever tested. But before we get into the video, I need to thank the sponsor of the video and the channel, and that is going to be, of course, Gun Deals. If you don't know, Gun Deals is a website that provides you with links to some of the best deals in the industry, no pun intended. Anything that you're looking for within the industry, go ahead and check out their website first. They probably have a link to it for the best possible price, and sometimes they add on additional coupon codes as well. Once again, they don't buy or sell anything, they merely point you in the right direction. So if you like saving money, go ahead and check them out. That is, once again, gun.deals. Now, if you want to help me out personally, you can, of course, like, share, and subscribe, because all that sort of stuff is free, and it does help me out quite a bit. On top of that, you can comment literally anything down below. There's also Subscribestar, which is just a pro to a Patreon. You send me a couple bucks every month, I get you entered in some cool giveaways, and send you guys some additional content. Now, I think that's just about everything on that side of things, but before we actually talk about the rifle, we do need to talk about full disclosure. Now, full disclosure, as most of you guys know who have watched the channel for quite some time, I've done a lot of videos for Bear Creek Arsenal. Bear Creek Arsenal was the first company to send me an upper receiver years ago at this point, I think a couple years ago. They were the first one to actually send me real product to review, which is quite cool. I'm quite grateful for that. But I have purchased quite a bit of stuff from them. I purchased thousands and thousands of dollars of my own personal stuff from Bear Creek Arsenal, and they also have sent me out quite a bit of stuff as well. So even though there is that long-term relationship there, and they did send this rifle out to me for free, they've never paid me to say one thing or the other, so this isn't a paid positive review. There are good things about this rifle and bad things about this rifle as well that we will get into throughout the video, but just know these are my own thoughts and opinions, and no one's paying me to say one thing or the other about them. So now getting into some of the basics about the rifle itself. As you see on here, it has a rattle can white kind of stormtrooper-ish paint job, although this was just a flat black rifle, although they do offer some Cerakote options that I haven't tried, so they do make them in a bunch of different colors as well. This is a 16-inch mid-length gun. It is a government profile barrel, so it is lighter in the middle section, and then it tapers up to the gas block, and then has a little bit of a thicker barrel towards the end. Government profile's pretty good for accuracy. It's kind of a middleweight, not super heavy, not super light either. This is a 5.56 chambering, 1 in 7 twist, 4150 chromoly steel barrel, so it is a very, very tough, very durable steel. It is not chrome lined in the chamber or the bore, and it is a parkerized finish. Parkerized finishes are not quite as durable, not quite as nice looking as nitride. They're not quite as corrosion resistant either. So I do think nitrided is better, and they do make nitrided barrels, but this is one of their lower end barrels, or at least just has a less desirable finish on it. Now, it is of course threaded 1/2x28, which is very standard for 5.56 rifles. On the end of it right now, I have a YHM QD mount for my suppressor, which I did do a lot of shooting with this rifle suppressed. But usually it comes with like an A2 or like a spiral flash hider that either they make themselves or they get it from like CAC or something else like that. Now, as I mentioned, this is a 16-inch mid-length gas system, which is quite good. It's very desirable. That is the sweet spot. I really like 16-inch guns, especially in 5.56, because they are very, very flexible. You want to go out to 600, 700, 800 yards, absolutely doable, very, very easy. You want to have great ballistics up close for your home defense loads. You can do literally anything with a 16-inch gun, and mid-length is the way to go on it. Now, the handguard is a 15-inch M-LOK deal. It's really, really thin, which is good because it means you can really grip onto it good, and it's not super bulky or super heavy. However, as I've noted in my previous videos, this iteration of their handguard is not the most durable. I have dented their other earlier handguards as well, and so if this gets dropped in the wrong way, you are going to dent it. Now, I have actually dropped this rifle for a couple optic reviews that I've done during the testing of this rifle itself, and the handguard has not dented. However, again, in other handguards that I've tested that are the same design, they have dented, so it really depends how it's dropped. But again, it's just not the strongest handguard on the market. A couple of things to note is they do have QD points all the way up here in the front at 15 inches, which is very optimistic if you're running a sling out that far. And they also have it very nicely right in front of the barrel nut, which is actually quite nice, and I use those all the time. That is how I had my GroveTech Sentinel mounted, was with their integrated QDs on their handguard, which is, again, it's a nice feature, doesn't cost you anything, removes a tiny bit of material, doesn't remove any strength. I really like that they include that on the handguard in a place where I prefer to run my slings. Now moving back to the upper receiver, this is where things start to get a little bit funky. As most of you guys know, when the real panic buying started, forged components basically became impossible to source. Luckily enough, Bear Creek Arsenal was already making a billet upper design, which means that this upper receiver is their billet upper. So it's literally machined from a block of aluminum rather than forged into shape and then finished machined by somebody else. This one here is actually machined from a solid block. In terms of strength, it is the tiniest, most imperceptible, less strong than forging. However, because it's a machined from a solid block, there's more stuff you can do with it. So you can make them stronger, you can make them lighter weight, you can do a lot of different stuff with it. They chose to keep it fairly standard. It is very aesthetically pleasing, and I do think that it looks better than a standard forged upper receiver. There's some different cuts on it. It's very lightweight. It's not very bulky like other billet upper receivers that I've seen. Has a really good angular shell deflector and forward assist. It keeps everything on there as you would want it. Now, something a little funky on this upper receiver is that the dust cover has a little bit more tolerance left and right, so it actually, you can push it forward and backwards a little bit than like on your standard forged upper receiver. Not a big deal, but it is there and it will jiggle around a little bit. Doesn't come loose, but it is just has a little bit more tolerance there than like on a standard forged upper receiver. Now, other than that, it's very standard. Same shell deflector, same forward assist, same charging handle, just a 7075 T6 charging handle. You'll notice that the bolt in here is a titanium nitride coating from E2 Armory. It is an exceptional high quality bolt that then has a very high quality finish applied to it. We'll go more in depth in a specific video about this bolt, but it is very, very good. It's a little dirty right now, but you can literally clean this thing with like your finger just because the stuff just wipes right off of it because it is a very, very slick finish. However, here is the bolt that shipped with the rifle. It's a very, very standard nitride bolt carry group. So it has a 9310 bolt. It is not high pressure tested. It is magnetic particle inspected. It's very, very high quality. The nitriding on it is quite nice. I've had about, at this point, 30,000 rounds on Bear Creek Arsenal bolts, on their 5.56 bolts anyways, and the only thing that fails on their 5.56 bolts is actually the screws, because the screws are YFS instead of the true grade 8, which are much stronger than the YFS screws. So that's the only change I would make to their standard nitride bolt carry groups. It's a very, very standard, very simple bolt carry group, nothing really special about it, I would say, but the YFS screws are a little cheaper and more prone to shearing. I've had one gas key screw shear off during shooting in about, 30,000 rounds on 5.56 bolts and 300 blackout bolts as well. On their 7.62x39 bolts, just by virtue of being a 7.62x39, I've had more extractors break off, but that's kind of par for the course for 7.62x39. Now, all of that to say is that the standard bolt carrier is just fine, if nothing special. Now, moving on from the upper receiver to the lower receiver, there are a few things that actually changed on the lower receiver, so I do want to get those out. The trigger that shipped with the rifle from Bear Creek Arsenal was a very standard mil-spec style trigger, around 6.5 to 7.5 pounds, a little gritty, but fairly standard for a rack grade AR-15 trigger. So I swapped that out. Currently we have a I think it's a Rock River Armory 2-stage trigger. It's like 60 bucks. So it's a very inexpensive upgrade, but it shoots very, very well, has a very, very clicky, very tactile wall. 2-stage trigger, and breaks at like 3.5, 4 pounds. So it's a good upgrade for not much money. The next two things that I switched out were the stock and the grip. It shipped with an A2 style grip, which is a little more sharp of an angle than I like, and also it has that finger groove that does not fit my tiny hands. So I switched it out with a Trinity 4 17-degree grip. This one here is one of the new ones that's made in the USA. On the back, it looks like it's a B5 stock, but it's not. I got it in some sort of budget kit for like 60 bucks with an LPK, and it is just a knockoff, and it works, but it's a pretty terrible stock other than that. Now, one very noticeable thing on the lower receiver is the actual engraving marks that they put on their lower receiver, or at least some of their lower receivers, is they actually engrave their logo with the Bear Creek Arsenal and the bear and then everything else onto it, and that's actually engraved via machining, not like laser engraved or anything else like that. So it is actually fairly deep on there, so if you painted that in with something, it could look pretty cool. It is just, I'm not sure if I like it or dislike it. It is very, very noticeable though. If you like the look of more stealth style lowers, this is definitely not going to be it for you. Now the safety and the magazine release, the bolt catch, the takedown pins, the buffer tube, the castle nut, the end plate, the buffer and spring are all stock. So it is a carbine buffer, carbine spring, nothing special there. The safety is very clicky. It's very tactile, it's very precise, it has a good amount of resistance, and then it just moves really quickly, so I don't have any problems with any of the other mil-spec stuff on the lower receiver. So now with all of the basics out of the way, we can talk about how it performed. Now again, I do want to caveat all of this by saying that this is very much so an entry-level AR. This comes in at a price of around, again, $520 to $550. They have an option that's basically this exact same rifle, but with a Magpul MOE and carbine stock, so it's upgraded Magpul furniture for like $534, which is the version that I would have rather got than the A2 and the standard carbine stock, because again, not a big fan of those, but this is very much so a value rifle. So does it perform like a value rifle? Well, the answer is actually yes, and then some. So as you'll notice through a lot of the footage, this recoils, or it doesn't, I should say. There's very, very little recoil on this gun. It is the best gas gun, with a caveat that we'll get into later. It is the best gas gun that I own. With a suppressor, without a suppressor on it, it basically does not move whatsoever, and that's for a lightweight AR-15. Now, not with a ZCO optic on it, but in its standard configuration that I did most of the shooting with, it is a very, very lightweight gun with basically no recoil. Now, I should mention that even though we are using a upgraded bolt carrier group, it is a standard weight bolt carrier group, so there's no weird trickery going on there. We are using the standard carbine and standard 3-ounce carbine buffer that shipped from the factory, so there's no funky business going on in the back end. It's not an adjustable gas block, so that must mean that the gas port is just the perfect size. Well, this is the caveat. It's actually not. It's actually much larger than it needs to be. So I actually took off the handguard, I took off the gas block itself, which was torqued down very properly. It was very, very difficult to get off, but again, that's good. I'd rather it be difficult to get off than easy to get off. It is a dimpled barrel, which is quite nice, but the important thing is I pin gauged the gas port at .084. Now that's pretty big. For instance, the Roscoe behind me, the quad rail, that is .076. And the PSA, the classic upper receiver that I did a couple videos on for gun deals, that is also .076 of a gas port. So why do those recoil more than this gun with a .084 gas port? Now the answer is there is a pretty major gas leak on the gas block or gas tube. I'm going to show you guys some footage, and you probably won't notice it the first time that you're watching it, but when I pause on it, you will very clearly see where a lot of that gas pressure is going. So there is quite a bit of gas blow-by on the gas block or on the fitment between the gas tube and the gas block. Honestly, the gas block is very tight to the barrel. It shimmies up and down just fine. There's not a lot of play in that whatsoever, or at least nothing major. It's less than some other nicer barrels that I've tried. And the gas tube seems to fit properly as well, but there is some sort of machining imperfection in between those three things that is causing a massive gas blow-by that makes this shoot like a much softer gassed AR. Now, the caveat to that is that my rifle shoots very, very softly. However, if you get a rifle and the machining imperfections are not there and you deal with all of the gas in a .084 gas port size, then you're going to get a rifle that is not very well gassed. So while my rifle shoots very, very flat and very fast, that's not due to having a well-gassed barrel. Again, it's a very over-gassed barrel. That's due to whatever is going wrong in between the barrel, the gas block, and the gas tube. So again, if you get one of these rifles expecting it to shoot how mine does and those issues are not there, you're going to have to deal with a lot more gas than I did. So that is a problem both in the QC and with the barrel in general, because the gas port size is just too large. It should be at .076. That seems to be fairly standard. If PSA is gassing their ARs better, that's probably where you should be, at least, I would say. And again, these are about the same price point, but even if it wasn't, if I wasn't having those issues with the gas block and the gas blow by, the bleed through, whatever you want to call it. This would be a over gassed AR that would still be fine to shoot. It would still be fast enough, but it would be a lot less pleasant than it has been for me. Because as it sits right now, this is, like I said, this is one of the best gas guns that I have, although that is due to a gas leak, not to a well-gassed barrel. So, the barrel is a little overgassed, but with that overgassing, is it accurate? I went ahead and did some accuracy testing with the barrel. Now, I should caveat this as well. I didn't have all of the match loads that I would like. I actually shot out or ran out of basically 3 or 4 of my normal match loads that I would test. So I went ahead and did the loads that I had on hand, which were some 55 grain Wolf, some 55 grain M193, which actually shot quite well. So I was quite pleasantly surprised by that. The last 5 rounds of my 77 grain IMI Razor Core, which shot about 1 MOA, so I'm very happy about that. And then on top of that, I had some 68 grain boat tail hollow point match from Frontier Hornady. Really terrible load. It shoots anywhere from 2 to 5 MOA depending on what gun I put it through. And it performed about 2.5 to 3 MOA in this rifle, so not a big problem. Overall, basically every shot or every group performed anywhere from 1 on the low end to about 2 MOA on the high end. So overall, I would actually say the accuracy on this barrel is very good. Again, Bear Creek Arsenal guarantees 1 MOA with 3-shot groups. However, generally speaking, I can also get 1 MOA 5-round groups, and if you find ammunition that this gun really likes, you should hopefully find the same amount of success. So they do have a 1 MOA guarantee for 3-shot group. So overall, I am very happy with the accuracy that I was able to get from this rifle. And again, this is a $525 rifle that you're getting down around the 1 MOA range, and I think that's just kind of AR-15s in general are very accurate guns. You can put 5 different loads through a gun and get anywhere from 1.5 to 3 MOA on just a basic budget beater AR, which is quite nice, and it's one of the advantages of the system in general. Now, overall, I've shot 1,200-ish rounds through this rifle. I haven't cleaned anything on it. I did swap the bolt carrier group after the first like 300 rounds or so. Not that I had any problems with it, but just because I needed more testing on this bolt carrier group when I do the review on that in the future. Again, I've had 25 to 30,000 rounds on Bear Creek Arsenal bolts. Their bolts are just fine. They just need to switch away from the YFS screws on their gas keys. So overall, the reliability has been 100%. I have not had a single failure with lots of crappy ammunition, as well as some like hotter M193. As you can tell in the videos, it ejects with its gas leak issues. It ejects steel case ammunition at about 430, and then hotter ammunition at about 330. So again, with its gas leak, it's a very, very well gassed AR, very fast, very flat. Now, on top of that, about 400 to 600 rounds on this rifle was done suppressed with that very blowback heavy can behind me, just my Form 1 can, that basically just dumps carbon back into the system. And it again has been perfectly reliable for me. The only issue that I really have with the gun whatsoever is that the gas port on the barrel is too large, and there is that egregious gas leak up front. So at the end of the day, can I recommend this Bear Creek Arsenal 16-inch rifle? Well, for $500, absolutely. For $1,000, no. For $1,500, absolutely not. For $500, this makes a excellent budget AR-15, entry-level AR-15, practice gun, beater gun, secondary parts rifle, whatever you want a $500 AR for, whether you're just getting in the game and you just need something that runs and you can get practice with, then sell down the road and get a nicer gun. I don't think this is the end-all be-all of rifles. Of course, I don't think this should be your one and only, or at least not without a lot of backup parts like an extra bolt and some stuff like that. And I did note on the QC issues that I have with mine on the gas barrel, gas block, gas tube, something in there is just a little bit funky. Now, my specific rifle at this point, I would be 100% confident in it for home defense, for like a truck gun, for competition, for long range target shooting. I did take this out to 400 yards, and it's basically a laser beam. 5.56 is a very, very flat shooting cartridge. So anything inside of 600 yards with a 16-inch AR is a very, very easy shot, depending on your loads and skill level, of course. That was it.
Yeah.
Are you recording that? Hit. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's 5 in a row. And again, this is a very fun, a very handy rifle to shoot, and with reliability being perfect on it, I still can recommend it, even though the QC in some of the smaller areas is not quite perfect. I do think that if you're into the budget AR game, then you need to be doing some of your own QC as well. You need to make sure that the gas block is aligned properly, your handguard screws are on properly, all the little things on your AR you need to check out and vet personally. So with this rifle at about 1,200 rounds for me, and it's again performed perfectly for me, I am very comfortable with it. However, your rifle could be a little bit different because, you know, tolerances and all that sort of stuff on budget ARs are a little bit more than what they are on higher end, nicer stuff. Now, I know that I review a lot of budget stuff. I'm a big fan of high value stuff, but that doesn't mean that nice stuff is not nice. For the money, I can absolutely recommend it for what it is. However, don't kid yourself about that, and you do need to be doing some of your own QC and stuff like that to vet what you're using works for you in your specific use case scenario, your specific circumstances. Again, for me, this has worked flawlessly. However, for you, it might not be the same. So that's really about it for the video, guys. That's about all I have to say for this rifle. Let me know what you guys think about it, or comment what you like or don't like about it down in the description, or if there's another budget brand of rifles I should be checking out. And funny little addendum to the end of this video, some of you may notice that this optic is a zero compromise 36mm main tube $4,000 rifle scope that I put on a $500 AR. Now, I just did this for funny and just because I wanted to put it on for the talking portion of the video, but this is a very exceptional rifle scope. I didn't buy it. This one here was actually sent out to me for testing and evaluation by one of my Subscribestar guys, so huge thank you to Gary. We are gonna be doing some very cool things with this optic. Now, it is a very big, very heavy optic, but I can honestly say that it's basically perfect. But for $4,000, I would hope so. So yeah, very cool. Very excited to actually get out and do some shooting with it. So once again, that's about it for the video, guys. Thank you for watching this far, if you made it this far. And that's about it for me, guys. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.